Good afternoon, golf fans. I'm Chris Terrell. I'm here for RotorPros.com. Going to do a live video here covering the 148th Open Championship at Royal Portrush. If you're not catching this live, you can definitely check out the archived version as we lead up to lineup block. I believe it is at 1:30 a.m. Eastern Thursday, so that's 11:30 my time. So going to be we'll get into it here in a little bit when we're looking at the weather and stuff like that. I'm definitely going to be waiting until later, definitely tomorrow after baseball lock into the evening before I finalize my lineups, just because there is a lot of weather and we will go over that, it being an Open Championship. So I just want to discuss a few things, kind of go over a little bit of course history, or sorry, not course history. They haven't played here since 1951 in the Open. This course, Royal Portrush, was used in the 2012 Irish Open, but the course has changed a little bit, and I'm going to go over some of those notes here as well. If you're not a RotorPros member yet, make sure to get over to RotorPros.com, see what we have to offer. We've got weekly, monthly, and yearly subscriptions with free trials, associated free trials with each of those as well. So make sure to go check those out, see what we're all about. I'm going to show you a little bit here in the chat. Our community chat's pretty much our number one thing. It's really where we go. We do one-on-one coaching with people, whether it be contest selection, whether it be lineup construction, whether it just be stats and how to understand stats in different sports, that sort of thing. It's a great place. It's it's really the place that we pride ourselves on the most with RotorPros. So definitely go check that out. So I'm going to turn this over. I'm just going to I'll go over some of my notes here real quick before I go ahead and share my screen. So 148th Open Championship, Royal Portrush Golf Club, the Dunluce course. It has two new holes, number 7 and number 8. That was done by Martin Ebert. Started in 2015. I believe it was completed in 2016 as they get ready for this Open Championship. So they removed the 17th and 18th from it's still out there, but it's not a part of the course that the pros are going to be playing here this week. So the course is going to play as a par 71, 7,344 yards. Fairly long when looking at it. I'm going to share my screen here in a minute and just show you some pictures of the course if you haven't checked them out already. There's also 5 new green complexes, 8 new tee boxes, 10 new bunkers, and I believe there's 58 total bunkers, which is the lowest of any open venue. But don't let that get into your head at all, because some of these bunkers, if you just search Royal Portrush bunkers and have a look at some of them, they are crazy looking and could be very challenging if golfers are to get into those. And some of them are in very good spots, challenging spots, I should say, off the tee. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen here real quick and show you some pictures of the course as well as some notes, and then start going over the cheat sheet as well. If you got any questions, just make sure to fire them off in the chat over there. I'll make sure to get to all the questions if there's anything maybe I skip over or don't cover. So there's the sheet. So there's the number 1 picture. Absolutely breathtaking pictures of this course. It's going to be excellent. The guys are talking about just how picturesque it is. Being how hard it is, in my notes here, I've got to look. I said it was played the 2012 Irish Open. Let's just go ahead and look at that leaderboard here real quick. Won at -18. Jamie Donaldson won that event. Cabrera Bello was second, tied with Anthony Wall. Some other notables that are in this field. You got Padraig Harrington there, -12. We got down Rory McIlroy, -11. So that's kind of another narrative here this week is Rory himself. He set the course record here. He's from Northern Ireland. It's pretty much a home game for him this week. He set the course record here when he was just 16 years old. So, I mean, you're probably going to hear that at least 45, 46 times here this week. Finished top 10, like I just showed you, at the 2012 Irish Open. I do have some links here if you check out these notes that I've shared in the RotorPros chat, where you can actually go. Rory breaks down the new 7th and 8th holes. I've also got a link here to Golf Digest where it goes hole by hole, just kind of gives you a look at the course, each and every hole from a couple different angles. And as you can see, there may not be a lot of bunkers, but they are in very challenging spots. If you're missing your drives off the tee, these are fairly wide fairways, I would say. The rough here, just from early reports, are longer than most opens. So, I mean, the fairways are wide. The driving accuracy should be high. A lot of players are probably going to be using irons anyway, especially if the wind starts to get up, just to ensure that they're not in that rough, shooting from that rough, or even from some of these bunkers. I'm just going to kind of slide through quickly and have a look at some of these holes and just see the challenges. You can see the undulation in a lot of the holes throughout. There's not going to be many level lies. And another thing they talked about with this course is the greens. It's a very fair test of golf. You've got some of the shorter holes with smaller green complexes. You've got some of the longer holes with larger green complexes. They're really good at mixing that up. Players are going to have shots from anywhere from long irons to mid irons, depending on what their strategy is off the tee, depending on the hole, whether they're going to be able to use driver or not. So it's going to be a real test of golf. The biggest thing when really trying to break down the course this week is just that it's really unpredictable on a week when we have course history, when we know what the weather's going to be like. Now we just have that variable of, like, for instance, last night I was looking at the weather report, and it was showing for Saturday somewhere in the range of 20-mile-an-hour winds with gusts anywhere going up to 30 to 35 miles an hour. Checked that forecast again this morning, and the wind is down, pretty much calm. So I'm just going to go out. I use Wind Finder. I'm going to bring that up here real quick. We'll slide down and we'll look at Thursday and Friday. So as you can see, kind of the first tee-offs are right before 7 a.m. local. So we're looking at like 12 to 15-mile-an-hour winds on Thursday, gusts in the 20-mile-an-hour range. So it's going to be challenging for her. I don't think there's really any break for any of the players, for any of the groups. So looking into Friday, it's kind of right around 8 miles an hour, 5 to 8 miles an hour all day, gusts in the 10-mile-an-hour. So as of right now, I don't see any advantage, tee time advantage going with, like Thursday early or Thursday late tee times. I'm going to monitor that. Like I said, I'm going to have that information in chat Wednesday afternoon / Wednesday evening if I'm planning on going, with a stack or anything like that. And then Saturday, like I said, last night, Saturday was showing 25 to 35 mile an hour gusts, anywhere between 15 and 25 mile an hour winds. That is now gone, looks pretty calm. Sunday afternoon for the final group, maybe a little bit more challenging than the morning guys. If you're playing showdowns, that's something we maybe want to pay attention to, is maybe loading up on the early groups on Sunday for that showdown. Again, we'll talk about that through the weekend. I might even do another live show as we head into that final round if I've got time. I know we got NASCAR this weekend as well. I'll be doing a video for that. But if I can fit it in, I definitely will cover some showdown stuff, looking at weather and kind of breaking that down as well. So as of now, I'm not really worried about it. The only day of trouble really seems to be the first day. And when looking at stats like this, if it's going to be really windy, I'm looking for more accuracy when breaking down the strokes gained off the tee. With it being less wind, I'm definitely, give a little bit of a boost to those guys at the top with the distance that can just smash it down there, especially guys that maybe have the total drive and that have a little bit of accuracy in their game as well. Like, for instance, I would say that McIlroy, Koepka, Johnson, Rahm, even Tiger a bit, or get a little bit of a boost if it's not going to be as windy. Now, some of those players, and we'll talk about it here shortly, are actually really good in the wind. So I'm not really too concerned about that. For those guys, it's more your lower guys that I'm really going to be, it's going to be a decision between fading them or being, overweight on them, depending on what the weather is. So more important than ever this week is to pay, not just make your lineups on Monday, Tuesday, and then just let them ride. You're going to want to definitely pay attention to that weather, especially, up there in Northern Ireland and just on the coast like that, because it can really affect scoring, making the cut and fantasy scoring in general. So we're going to pay attention to that weather. Another thing, just kind of looking at some key stats. And like I said, variance with the weather, it being an open, no course history here. Being that, there's going to be approaches from multiple distances. There's going to be guys using driver at times on some holes, irons off tees on other holes. There's some difficult up and downs, tough green complexes. It's going to be an all-around game. It's going to test all around. So strokes gained off the tee, I got listed first. Obviously, like I said, emphasis on accuracy if it's windy, a little more distance if it's calm. Strokes gained approach, I would put emphasis on proximity when breaking down those. Not any specific distances, just proximity in general. Maybe even look at fairway proximity. You know, if guys are going to be using a less than driver strategy and going to be hitting lots of fairways, going to want to look at that fairway proximity, because there is some undulation on these greens and some swales in the middle that can definitely cause three putts. So with that strokes gained approach proximity, I'm also going to look at three putt avoidance on these greens as well. And then strokes gained around the green, the more wind that's going to be in the forecast, the more important this is going to be for me. Just because obviously if the wind's going to be up, especially crosswinds and that sort of thing, we're going to see a lot of greens, more greens missed than it would be if the winds are down. So that brings in scrambling and strokes gained around the green. And then birdie or better percentage, like the winning score, it could be as low as, or sorry, I guess as high as -5 if it's really, really windy. But by the looks of the weather just right now, I'm kind of looking at like -10 to -15 range, somewhere in there. And then if the wind really, you know, peters off like that, you know, we could see anywhere upwards of -20. So birdie or better percentage definitely makes a lot of sense to look at, very correlated very closely with your fantasy scoring. And then bogey avoidance is something I will weigh either way, but obviously if it's going to be windy again, I'm going to look a little bit more at that bogey avoidance number as well. And then with wind, some people were asking me in chat this morning, off the tee numbers, which guys to target if it's going to be windy, that sort of thing. And as a general rule, I mean, strokes gained off the tee is looking at a little combination of distance and accuracy. So I will look at guys that are strong off the tee, but then I'll go and break it down further and start looking at driving accuracy. And then using like Fantasy National, I will look at fairways gained on there as well. Maybe what side of the fairways they're missing to, that sort of thing. And then also ball flight. So what I found on ball flight, if you go to PGAtour.com and you search under their stats and their off the tee stats, they've got apex height. Now this only takes into account par 4s and 5s off the tee. So it doesn't really give you a good read of how players hit their irons, higher or lower, but in general, you know, if a guy's hitting it high off the tee, they're going to be hitting a high ball on their approach shots too. So it's just kind of an indicator. I'm not using it in modeling. I don't have this on my sheet or anything, but it's something you can refer to. Like for instance, Phil Mickelson, Bryson DeChambeau stand out here at the top. Very high ball flights. This would be the apex of that height, or sorry, of that tee shot on average, so 140 feet. You start going down to the bottom of the list here to low flight guys. Just one who was in this field that stood out I was looking at earlier. Of course, I can't find it now. Ryan Moore stands out. He's right near the bottom, like 76 feet. Like that's almost half the apex height as Phil Mickelson has on his drives, which is going to obviously come into play when you're talking about links golf and wind. You want to keep the ball flighted low, keep it out of that wind. It's not going to affect as much going left or right. So it's something you can definitely refer to. I have shared this link. And like I said, just go to PGAtour.com, go under stats, go under off the tee. And then at the very bottom, I'll just show you where it is here. You click off the tee. And then at the very bottom of that list, you're going to find apex height right there. So that's something to look at. Obviously, guys with lower ball flights get a little bit of a boost for me. I'm not fading anyone that has a high ball flight. Let's get that out there. But I will give a slight boost to guys who do have a low ball flight if it looks to be windy, especially the guys that are going off early Thursday morning as well. So something else I've got, I shared, it's on my website, and I shared it in the chat as well, is my major championship form sheet that I've been working on. So right now it is the top 100 players in the world. It's going back to 2015, and it's got every player in that top 100 and their finishes on all majors since the start of 2015. So like for instance, we all know Brooks Koepka kicks butt. How much does he kick butt in the majors? Well, 17 majors since the start of 2015. He's made every single cut. He's got 4 wins, 3 of them coming since the start of last year, with 8 top 10s or 8 top 5s and 10 top 10s. Like as you can see here, he's finished first or second in 5 of his last 6 majors. So that really stands out. So I'll use this just kind of as a reference as well when I'm breaking guys down. Majors are obviously a different animal than your regular tournament. And if you were in chat this morning and you've seen the they were doing interviews with players from the Open and the Open Twitter account. You can go there at the Open. they were talking to Brooks Koepka and they were asking him about practice. And the little clip that came out was he does not. He says he practices for these majors. He only practices for majors. He doesn't practice for regular tour events. So that kind of helps the narrative of him being two totally different players. You've got Brooks Koepka, the major championship Brooks Koepka, and then you've just got regular tour event Brooks Koepka, which is always the highest priced golfer in the field, it seems, but he always makes a good fade. Others, it's completely different when it comes to the majors. And just looking at his price this week, he is even a little bit cheaper. He's most expensive on FanDuel. He's $200 cheaper than McIlroy. So those are your top two guys over the only two guys above 11K on DK and the only two guys above 12K on FanDuel this week. So those are the top two guys, and it makes a lot of sense. You start looking at other guys in the field. Rory hasn't won a major going back to, I believe it was the Open in 2014. But him, DJ, and Koepka have all got 10 top 10s going back to the start of 2015. So you got some major form there. Jason Day, he's going to make a nice value this week. He's priced at 8,600 on DK, 10-4 on FanDuel. He's got A's third, I guess that'd be fourth behind those big three there, and 8 top 10s in his last. He's got 19 majors since the start of 15. He's even got a win in there and 4 top 5s. That really stands out. And with this softer, the flatter pricing that comes with these major championships, being that there's all the top players in the world, we do see so much value in building balanced lineups. And that's something I'm going to look at here, because it's either you're going to go with Rory or Koepka and then kind of dig down into that. You can grab a couple players from the mid-8, but then you're down into the low 7s and stuff, kind of more of a stars and scrubs setup versus going with a more conventional, just balanced, more. I use a balanced lineup more for cash games on a week-to-week basis. These majors, it makes complete sense just with the points per dollar value with all these guys in the mid-range like that. Let's just name off a few here to start that really stand out. I'm going to go below the 9K range here first. So right at 9K, we've got Patrick Cantlay. He's number 1 in my model right now. Adam Scott at 8,800, Matt Kuchar 87, Jason Day, we just talked about him. Matsuyama, I really like. Henrik Stensson's probably going to be the highest owned golfer this week at 8,400. Paul Casey right below him, very consistent. Just so many golf. You can just build a lineup just in that 8K range and feel very comfortable about it. So I will be building a lot of those balanced lineups this week in GPP. Just because, to win, if you're going in the Millie Maker, and I'm going to talk about some contest selection here in a bit, but if you're going in the Millie Maker this week and, going with 150 lineups, you want to differentiate yourself. I think a lot of people are going to go towards McIlroy and Koepka. Looking at the ownership, and I use Fanshare Sports, excellent site, get over and see. They tag pretty much every social media. Anytime a golfer is mentioned on social media, in a video, on a podcast, and they kind of track that, whether it's a good sentiment or a bad sentiment. They have ownership projections, all that kind of stuff. But what I was really looking at in this mid-range was that Henrik Stenson, like I said, is probably going to be the highest owned golfer this week. I like pivoting 2 guys around him and leaving Stenson off my card in some lineups. If he's going to be 35% owned and you go with a guy like, maybe not half the ownership, but if you can get a 10% discount on ownership just going to Matsuyama or possibly Casey, I don't think Day is going to give you that big. But just the fact that Stenson and Day, and then you got Matsuyama sandwiched between, I think Day and Stenson are going to be a heck of a lot more popular than Stenson. I think that's a good GPP pivot this week. So it's kind of the way I'm looking at that. And then if you do want to go stars and scrubs, my top 2 guys this week are obviously Rory and Koepka. Rory's got all the narratives, being pretty much his home track. He's got the course record. That isn't the only thing, however. You start breaking down the stats as well. Looking at his Open Championship history first, he's got top 5s. He's played here 4 times, or played the Open 4 times in the last 5 years. He won it in 2014. Top 5s in each of the last 3 years, including runner-up last year. He comes in with form this year as well. And then you start breaking down the stats, and I was looking at tee to green. So if I go here, because we want an overall off the tee, around the green, and the approach, put that all together, you got your tee to green stats. He's 2.342. Justin Thomas is almost, like a full half shot on average, a half tee to green gained per round, half stroke. So, I mean, that's quite a huge difference, especially considering the difference between Rory and Thomas is almost the same as the difference between Thomas and then going down to like Gary Woodland down here. So that's a big gap. He's way ahead of everyone else there. Excellent ball striking. He's got the distance. He's good on just looking at using Fantasy National and looking at performance over the last 50 rounds in windy conditions is one of the filters that I put in this week to break down. And with that filter, he's actually second in strokes gained total behind Dustin Johnson when you're looking at windy conditions. So Rory's definitely going to be number one for me this week. And then I don't think you can fade Brooks. He pretty much said he only practices for these majors. He lives for winning major championships. He's on a roll. He's, like I said, top two podium finishes in 4 of his last 5. So definitely going to be looking at Brooks, but I will have more Rory than Brooks in this. And then I do like Dustin Johnson as the GPP pivot off those two. If you're trying to do like a little bit of a contrarian build, I think he's going to be the least owned of them, even though he is a little bit of a discount here. And then Jon Rahm, I think because he was the Irish Open 2 weeks ago, a little bit weaker of a field, so I'm not looking too much into it. I love seeing that form. I'm just not ready to call him a core play. I don't mind getting a little, being that, he's seen a lot of sentiment rating. People are probably going to jump on him just because of that recency bias. I'm really considering just fading him completely. Haven't totally decided on that, but right now I am very underweight on Rahm. Tiger, I will definitely have some there as well. I like looking at the odds. These are opening odds. This was from Monday morning. He's actually up. I found him at 28. I've seen some 30-1 on him as well, because I think there's a lot of bets coming in on these top guys as well as these mid-range guys. So it's kind of pushing Tiger's price. So at 25 to 30-1, I think I'm definitely, going to put a bet out there on Tiger. I'll have him in a few, but again, I'm going to be a little bit underweight on him as well. Justin Rose could be sneaky. He never seems to get a whole bunch of ownership, even though he's, one of the best players, top 5 in the world here. He's averaging 76 DraftKings points per tournament, per event over his last 5, even better over his last 10. So he's turned it down a little bit, but not a whole bunch there. But definitely looking at him. Tommy Fleetwood, I don't really have any conviction yet on him. He just never seems to finish. The upside never seems to be there. The final round, he usually lets you down. He'll make the cut and just kind of blah blah through the weekend. And just looking, and that shows in his DraftKings score in here, 61 DraftKings points per event over his last 5. When you can get guys that are a lot lower priced, like you're jumping down to Cantlay here, he's averaged 90 over his last 5. You got Matsuyama, who's got 90 over his last 5 as well. I would just take the money, just take the savings and go down to these mid-tier guys versus Fleetwood. And, that's kind of where I'm sitting with Woods as well. As I think I just like the more balanced lineup with the guys that are below him in that range in the $8,000 area. And while we're looking at those DraftKings points, I mentioned Cantlay. He's number 1 in the model. Adam Scott, he's number 2, and Matsuyama number 3. I'm going to have a lot of that core. And when I talk about core building, I will take those 3 golfers. I will put them in a lineup, whatever site. I believe 5 golfers on – 6 and 6. So you put those 3 in your lineup, and then you switch in the other 3. And then you just go ahead and build, it depends on how many lineups you're doing. If you're doing 20 lineups, I'm going to put that core together, and I'm probably going to run that 3-player core in about 7 or 8 lineups, and then I'll switch the core up, and then I'll mix in 5 or 6 other golfers from those bottom tiers to make that work out. I'm just going to bring it up and actually plug them in and just see the average leftover that we can go ahead and build with here. But Cantlay, he's got excellent form. He's coming in with form. He's got that distance. And then we start looking at some of the other stat ranges, and it really pops off the page. 3rd in strokes gained tee to green for that discount is amazing. 5th in ball striking. And my stats on the sheet are 95% from this season, and then I pull in 5% from last year just to give it a little bit more of a larger sample size that we can go off of, even though we are a pretty large sample size already this season. So if you go Cantley, Scott, and Matsuyama, and I've already built a few of these lineups, it leaves you 7,900 average left over. So you don't even have to go down far. Like if you wanted to go Shane Lowry, you could get Paul Casey in there. You could definitely get Stenson. If you wanted to go those four, you could go that way. I really like Webb Simpson as well. He's been good in the wind. He's good ball striking, 20th in strokes gained tee to green. He's accurate off the tee. So if it gets windy, definitely leaning a little, even more Webb. I think he's going to be a little bit lower on, maybe in that 12 to 15% ownership range versus other guys that are going to be 15 to 20, 20 to 25%, somewhere in there. So Webb stands out to me this week. It seems that whenever Webb stands out in the top 10 in my model, he's usually done good. So I usually jump on him no matter what. And he was one of the first ones that stood out, 7,600, definitely. He matches that DraftKings score in 77 points per event over his last 5 I'm looking at there as well. So you can definitely build some crazy good balanced lineups with tons of upside in this range. This is a week where it would be really easy to go ahead. I'm not easy from a not having to dig too deep into your player pool to build 150 lineups. Not easy because I do this by hand. So if I'm doing 150 lineups, it's going to take me about 6 hours to do that. So but there's definitely enough value where you can go plenty of different ways this week. Like I mentioned, I like going a little bit more balanced. I mentioned a few of the guys going down even further, looking at some guys that stand out. Cabrera Bello, he was runner-up in the 2012 Irish Open here. He had some bad form coming in on the PGA Tour. He hasn't really stood out a whole bunch at all, to be honest with you. But over the last 3 weeks, he's played the BMW International, the Irish Open, and the Scottish Open. He's got top 10s in all 3 of those. So he has found some form on the European Tour, which I would say this correlates a lot more to a European Tour event than a PGA Tour event. So at 7,593 on FanDuel, definitely looking to Cabrera Bello this week. I think, if people are looking at that Irish Open leaderboard or even his current form on the European Tour, he's gonna be up there in a lot of people's lists this week. So I pay attention to that. If he's going to get up into the 15-20% owned range, I might consider going a little bit underweight on him just because of that lack of consistency. But right now, he's one of my core plays in this mid 7K to lower 7K range. Patrick Reed, major champion, won the Masters. He's won the Masters. He stands out to me. His around the green game, which is something, if it's going to get windy in links golf, he's a good links golf player. He's got that low ball flight. That's something I looked at in that Apex height. He's got a very low ball flight. I believe he's would be the bottom 20 of that ranking that I showed you, which would be the top 20 if you're reversing that order and looking at low ball flights as the top ranked guys. So he stands out at 90 to 1 odds. I'm going to put a little bet on him just with those odds. He's won a major before. He's won tournaments. He's like elite when it comes to scrambling around the green as well. So I'll have some of him. GPP only. I'm not going to use him in cash games. I don't really think you even need to come down this far in cash games unless you're going to Stars and Scrubs cash, and that's all right too, but that's not the way I'm looking. So I'm going to go down a little bit further. Zach Johnson, I think a lot of people are going to be off of him. He didn't miss the cut last week at the John Deere Classic, but a lot of people were on him. He's got that course history at the John Deere. He let people down there. He didn't, like I said, he didn't miss the cut, but he finished near the bottom of the leaderboard. Then he had to travel over here. I think he could come in low owned. He's done well in the Opens before. Just seeing that success, like his last 5 years, he's made the cut in each of them. He won the 2015 Open, and he's finished top 20 in 3 leading up to this year. The form hasn't been great, but I think he could be lower owned, and with that price at 7,200, I'm willing to take a shot on someone who's shown us that he can win. He's won an Open before and had a lot of success lately at these Open championships at Links Golf. So if he's going to be low owned, I'm probably going to be overweight on him in GPP. Emiliano Grillo stands out a little bit as well. He has missed the Open in a big way the last 2 years. In 2016, he finished 12th. That was at Royal Troon. What stood out to me just a little bit, looking at his recent numbers through Fantasy National over the last 24 rounds, he's 6th in strokes gained approach, 28th in strokes gained off the tee. and he ranks 20th in my model that's looking at the last 50 rounds of windy conditions as well. The only thing that concerns me with him, and the reason he's going to be GPP only, is he ranks 100th in bogeys avoided in that 24-round sample size, and he's also 106th in this field in strokes gained around the green, which kind of concerns me a little bit if it's going to get windy. I mean, sure, he's top 20 in strokes gained total in the wind, but if he's been off on his around the green game recently, which would be like the last 6 events, 24 rounds, kind of concerns me a little bit. He's going to be GPP only. And like I said, I'm looking at guys with overall game. So, I mean, off the tee, approach, around the green, putting, a little bit of everything going to be tested all over. So when I sorted by last 24 rounds, again, using the Moosonomics Fantasy National Golf Club tools, and I sorted by last 24 rounds, there are, just let me look at this one more time. There are 4 players who rank top 30 in off the tee, approach, and around the green over those last 24 rounds. You got Rory McIlroy at the top, first and off the tee, second approach, 26th around the green. You've got Patrick Cantlay, 10th off the tee, 12th approach, 27th around the green. And then we've got Adam Scott, who leads all of them in combined tee to green numbers. Actually, he's behind Rory in tee to green, but just barely. But he is 14th off the tee, 8th on the approach, and 1st and around the green. He hasn't missed. Adam Scott's definitely one of my core plays this week. He hasn't missed an Open cut since 2010. 2009 was his last missed cut at the Open. And I believe he hasn't finished. Like, he's been just 3 or 4 top 10s in that time as well. So he's been right up there in the leaderboards, plays well in the wind. Elite scrambler, elite ball striker. And his putting's been a heck of a lot better. Over the last 24 rounds, he's 24th in strokes gained putting. So the other thing I wanted to mention the other player, Joaquin Niemann, is right outside of that ranking of the top 30 in all 3 of those tee to green stats. He's 20th in both off the tee and approach, and 33rd in strokes gained around the green. So he's really close when looking at that model and that narrative as well. Ches Reavie, a little bit cheaper. He's only 7,100 on DK, 23rd and off the tee, 29th in the approach, 16th and around the green. So the other thing I wanted to mention with Matsuyama, he's in there as my core plays as well. Love this 8K range this week. He's been really good ball striking. 26th off the tee, 7th in the approach, and then even 39th. Not great, but not bad. Still above average in around the green over the last 24 rounds. As we all know, he's not a great putter. That's kind of what let him down. I think in strokes gained putting on tour ranks this season, I believe he's outside the 110, 113, something like that in strokes gained putting. The trend that I like to see is coming into this event, going back to the Byron Nelson in May, he has gained strokes putting in 6 straight events, and he's gained strokes in off the tee and approach, so you're ball striking, but he's gained strokes in both off the tee and approach in the same event in 4 straight. Sorry, I had a glitch there. 4 straight in 13 of his last 14 events, and the only one he didn't gain in both off the tee and approach was the PGA, because he literally lost negative 0.8 strokes off the tee. So he's coming in as an elite ball striker right now, hitting the ball very well, and while he's a bad putter, he's trending really, really well in putting. I hope he rides that out, because I think he's going to be a lot lower owned. Not super low owned by any means, but I think he's going to be in the 10-15% range. And if he's 15% and you've got guys like in that same range there, I'm just going to jump back up, say even Adam Scott, Jason Day, Henrik Stenson, who are going to be 20 to 25% owned. I love the pivot to Matsuyama. All right, moving on. A couple other things I wanted to look at, just guys that are good around the green over the last 24 rounds. You're looking at a top 5 of Adam Scott, Louis Oosthuizen, Padraig Harrington, although that's the one that really stands out to me because he's literally terrible in every other stat. So I'm not really looking at him. Sung J M up there, Brandt Snedeker, and Byung-Hun An and Patrick Reed. That's kind of your top guys when looking at around the green over the last few rounds. Any questions? If anyone got any questions, I'm going to throw them. Any players I maybe didn't mention? I'm going to go down a little bit further, look at some guys that I maybe haven't covered in the lower yet. Kevin Streelman a little bit. He's going to be. I wrote him up last week in one of my articles. I was on him, but as soon as he got his name announced that he was invited to the Open, he was gone, withdrew from that tournament. So I still am on him a little bit. He's 42nd and off the tee over the last 24 rounds, 3rd in strokes gained approach, and 28th in around the green. So I do like seeing that. He's got a balanced game, balanced ball striking game going on right now. He's not making a ton of birdies, 71st in this field in birdie or better gained over those last 24 rounds. But what's positive to show me that there's possibly some regression coming in that area is that he's 18th in opportunities gained and 15th in bogeys avoided as well. So, I mean, just all around, he just kind of hits it, and he's 7,000 on DraftKings. So he's going to be one of the core value plays for me. Ryan Moore, a little bit more on the GPP side of things when it comes to Moore. His around the green game hasn't been great, and his bogeys avoided too. He's outside the top 100 in both those stats. But he is starting to trend. I say we, like pretty much the DFS community. He was very high owned a few weeks ago when he missed the cut, back-to-back cuts at the Rocket Mortgage. He missed the cut again at the 3M Open. Then he bounced back with T18 at the John Deere last week, gained 7.1 strokes tee to green. So he was just crushing it tee to green, but his putter was just slightly below average. Ended up, he probably could have been in that top 10 range. I'm not expecting much from these guys that I'm talking about in the 7,000 range. A top 10 would be phenomenal from them. A top 20 would even be more than what you would need to hit value, provided they're, not just par in every single hole, not getting any birdies from a DraftKings scoring perspective. But if you're getting these guys who are going to make the cut and finish even inside the top 40, and they're in the 7K range, I think that is enough. It may not be enough to get you to a GPP win, but it's going to be a cash. Obviously if you get all 6 guys through, but if you've got 2 of these guys in the 7K range to finish, T35, T40, somewhere in there, both of them, you're probably, you're likely not going to win a GPP. You're going to need probably out of your 6 golfers, 5 of them at least inside the top 10 with the winner, maybe even the second place guy as well. But for cash games, I could see using Streelman a little bit over Ryan Moore for sure. Streelman would be my cash play if you're going to a stars and scrubs kind of build on that. And then going down even further, few guys that maybe stand out. I do like Kyle Stanley. He's got that accuracy. He made the cut last year, missed the cut in 2017. So he's going to be super low and it's going to be GPP only. Ryan Fox from European Tour player. He's made the cut here 3 years in a row. Terrible form coming in. And the form on the sheet this week, I've actually gone through, and any of these guys that are European Tour players, I went and put their form in. I inserted that. And then any of the PGA Tour players that either play the Irish Open or Scottish Open, I updated their form on the sheet as well. So that's in there. Just so that when you're looking, you realize, because a lot of the players, my database is only looking at PGA Tour. So you get some of these European Tour guys whose form will show up, but some of that form's from a month, 2 months, even sometimes 3-4 months, start of the season, from where that comes from. So GPP dart pretty much on Fox. He hits it a ton. If it's windy, I'm going to be a little bit less off him, but the way it looks right now, I think he makes a good GPP play. Andrew Putnam's had really good form, but as you can see off the tee, has been terrible, a little bit better on the approach. He's an excellent putter. So kind of looking that way. Right now, it's kind of as low as I'm going. I haven't really dug down because, like I said, I like the balanced approach a lot this week when getting into lineup construction. Eric Van Ruin's been hot lately. He finished top 20 at the Open last year. He's got top 20s in 3 of his last 5 tournaments overall. So we'll be looking at him a little bit in this low 7K range. But I think there's enough value in the low 7K range, high 7Ks, and even into the 8s where we can still build the stars and scrubs lineup with, say, like if you throw in McIlroy, let's jump down. We'll grab, say, Matsuyama, McIlroy, Matsuyama. And when you do that, you still got 7,400 left. So, I mean, you can jump down. Just for instance, you grab a Streelman. And I like Mike Lorenzo Vera. That's one that, here it is right here. I was looking for him, couldn't locate him. Excellent form coming in from, I believe he has not missed a cut on the European Tour in about 12 events going back to like February, and that includes a T16 at the PGA Championship. So he's played a major, not just these European fields, and been finishing very strong. So go throw him in there. So with the McIlroy, Matsuyama, Streelman, Vera, you've got now 7,900 left over. You can jump back up, way up here, and build a lineup. So that's the reason why I'm not really jumping down into that 6K range. I just don't feel you really need to this week. I may find in some of my builds, if you really want to jam, say McIlroy and someone else from, say, the 9K range, you want to put a Rose with them at 9,900. Then you're down with about $7,125 left in your DK average salary per player. You could still make that work. I still got no problem. You start putting as high as I would go. I don't think you can go comfortably. I mean, you can do it, but Brooks and Rory, the two 11K guys, I don't think you can do that. I think you need a 11K guy, and I don't even feel comfortable going with a 10K guy. So if I'm going with Rory or Brooks, it's going to be one of them with as high as I would go would be, like I said, Rose at 9,900. And then you're left with 7,100. But I really like the construction of grabbing either Rose or Koepka and pairing them with one of those mid 8K to high 8K range guys, and then jumping down into the mid 7K range and filling out your lineup. And you're going to find that you're really comfortable with that kind of lineup construction. You get in the big upside with some of the top guys, some of those medium guys that are very underpriced, that are normally the 10 to 10.5. Price guys on DraftKings on any normal tournament. Now they're $8,500 or $9,000. You're going to have a really high upside balanced lineup. I call it balanced just because the players that you're fitting in your lineup are balanced. It's more of a stars and scrubs build that you're fitting, like a McIlroy and Matsuyama, McIlroy Thomas, McIlroy Cantlay, that sort of thing. Even McIlroy Cantlay leaves you 7,350. So tons of ways to go this week. Most important thing is building your player pool and narrowing down your player pool. So I always go down to the bottom. And like I said, I'm not interested in many of these 6K guys. I'll maybe highlight 3 or 4 of them and put them in my player pool just in case. But what I'll do first is go to the below 7K range, and I'll literally, on my own cheat sheet, which is like the members only, I'll create a copy, and I'll literally go through and I will start taking guys out of my player pool, getting my player pool down. Because I find you're going to have a better chance of creating. I talk about this in my baseball videos. I talk about this in any kind of lineup construction when we're talking GPP. Is I want to build a core players, like I said, like Matsuyama, Scott, and Cantlay, for instance. Put those 3 together and build, depending on how many lineups you're doing, build 5 to 10 lineups around those 3 altogether. All 10 lineups have those 3 in it, and then you swap in the other 3, so that when your core hits, you're going to have a better chance of winning the GPP, hitting it right. Because like I explained with the baseball video yesterday, if you get your core 3 and you get them together in that one lineup, and even 2 of your other guys really go off, but one of them misses the cut, that's your only chance with that core to hit the nuts. Say your core goes first, second, third, but one of your guys misses the cut, you're done. You're not going to win the GPP because you've only got 5 or 6 through the cut. Whereas if you build 10 lineups with them, you've now got 10 chances swapping in those other 3 players, being that your core finished 1, 2, 3 to hit the nuts and win that GPP, versus building 10 lineups that are all completely different and no overlap correlation whatsoever. You're kind of just throwing darts blindfolded. You might as well buy a lottery ticket at that point. So while there is a lot of variance out there, we want to be able to use that variance to our advantage when we're building lineups, so that when we do hit, we've got more opportunities to hit big, not just min cash 10 lineups, and one of them gets close, but 2 or 3 of them min cash, you're just breaking even. I would rather either lose this week with my core or win big. That's the way I'm looking at it. So with that kind of strategy and that kind of mindset, you're not going to win every week. You really got to be strong mentally just to come back next week and just push forward with that same strategy, knowing that really if you hit, you don't even have to hit big, like really big once or twice a season, but really realistically, if you're putting in, say, $100 a week, that's $400 a month. If you hit even marginally once a month, once out of every 4 tournaments, it's going to pay for, $1,000. Say you hit once for $1,000, which isn't a big win for a lot of people. It can be a big win for, small stakes for sure. And if you're $100 a week and you win $1,000, you're up 600 for the month. So, I mean, you're doing good right there. So it's kind of the strategy, the way I look at lineup building. So something else that pretty much covers my core plays, lineup construction. We talked about weather, talked about some of the narratives. I'm not seeing any questions right now. But if you do have questions, I'm just going to kind of close things down right away. I'm going to get back to baseball. I'm going to do some audits there as well. If you've got questions about golfers, weather, anything at all, hit me up and just head over to the RotoPros community chat. Be in the member chat all day, all night, pretty much in there 16, 17 hours a day to answer questions, and it's on my phone. So definitely hit me up there. You can hit me up on Twitter at Jaeger_Bombs9 as well. And if you're in the members chat, you're new to RotoPros, you want to play DFS PGA, and you want to get all the information possible, I literally spend Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday leading up to lineup lock, posting any information I can find on the course, on the field, on the narratives, the weather, pretty much anything whatsoever. And I posted in this hashtag PGA Talk channel. So make sure to join that. That's key. We do have these channels for pretty much all the sports that we have, so make sure to check them out. Reach out for some one-on-one. If you don't want to talk in a public setting in one of these, in the main members chat or on the PGA Talk channel, definitely hit me up in a one-on-one conversation. I can definitely help you out with lineup construction or just stats on a player, how he's done lately versus the season. When it comes to trends, I'm looking at how they do on my sheet, and that's why I love Fantasy National, because I can go ahead and see that and go look at the stats ranks here. Just picking out a guy like, say, Tiger Woods, 60th and off the tee. Well, now I can go to Fantasy National. I can say, well, that is long-term form. He's 60th in this field in strokes gained off the tee. How's he done in the last 8 rounds, in the last 4 rounds, 24, 50, pretty much anything you want. And I'm just going to bring this over here for a minute, the Fantasy National. So it's just some of the filters that I'm going to be looking at as we get closer to lock here this week. If it's going to be windy, I'm going to go look at the last 50 rounds. And I want to go down. It's probably, difficult scoring. Makes sense to throw that in there. And then, you've got everything from greens to green firmness to fairways to the rough length to the green speed to whether it's a par 70, 71, or 72. If you're looking for first round leader bets, you can go sort and use the filter round 1 here. Or if you're playing showdown in round 4, just go out and single out just round 4 performance for players. There's also in the menu here, you can go click live. So as the tournament's on, you can see how everyone's performing and all the strokes gained stats. That helps a lot too when looking at showdown. So guys that are maybe ball striking like crazy on Thursday, but are below average putting, losing 3-4 strokes putting on day 1 or 2 strokes or whatever it may be, that's probably a player I'm going to target in day 2 showdowns, in the hopes that putting comes back to the mean, regresses to the mean, I guess. So if it's going to be windy, back to this, if it's going to be windy, I'm going to click difficult scoring conditions. I'm going to go windy AF. Depending on the severity of the wind, but right now I'm mixing them. So we've got moderate wind and we've got windy AF there as well. So I think that's anything over 10 miles an hour. And then I like to go strokes gained total. And then you just kind of have a look at guys that are doing well over the last 50 rounds in difficult conditions, in difficult windy conditions. So you've got like Henrik Stenson, Jason Day, Dustin Johnson, Rory McIlroy. So that's just some of the things that I use Fantasy National for when comparing long-term trends to short-term trends. On my sheet, and then they've got a lot of different stats that I don't have available on my sheet as well that I use in comparing as well. So that pretty much covers everything. Like I said, if you got any questions, hit me up on Twitter at Jaeger_Bombs9, at RotoPros as well. You can hit us up with questions there or in the community chat. With that, thanks for watching. Let's go start building some lineups. And like I said, I'm going to keep my ear to the ground when it comes to weather information. And I will keep everyone updated through Twitter and the community chat. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a great day. Let's go get some green screens.